This way they'd be working until Christmas and still wouldn't have covered even a fraction of what Bolingbroke owned. Not just here in his library, but also in other rooms of the castle, where books sat on shelves, in trunks, or on the floor. "Hey, what's that?" Guinevere reached for a small volume with faded lettering on the leather binding. "A Cornish treasure island." Dolly yapped excitedly as she stood on her hind legs with her front legs against a chair to see better. Guinevere opened the book and studied the map in the front, which depicted Cornisea, marked up with various signs. Off the shore there was supposed to be a sunken pirate ship. On the island itself there was a note marking the whereabouts of a crown worn by one of the unhappy wives of Henry VIII, and another note indicating the location of a chest full of gold coins taken from a rich merchant in a highway attack. She whistled. If this is correct, it would be worthwhile to go around with a metal detector.
"Lots before you tried," Bolingbroke shrugged. "Cornisea's colourful history has always inspired people to make it the site of some adventure tale or rare object. If you study that book better, you'll learn that the sources for those markings are obscure historians or alleged world travellers like Marco Polo. Whether they ever really set foot here, or wrote up their tales from their comfortable beds at home, is completely unclear. But as long as it involves treasure, people believe it. I thought that if Oliver and you are serious about promoting the castle, you should have a look at it. Even if the actual objects aren't here, the connections with Henry VIII or other royals might prove to be an attraction."
"Yes, I suppose so." Guinevere kept her eyes on the volume in her hands, not quite sure what to think of Bolingbroke's sudden proposition. Was he being ironic because he didn't really believe in the castle's potential as a tourist attraction? Or was he rather afraid that their scheme would prove to be so successful that his peace and quiet would be gone forever? A bell resounded from downstairs. Bolingbroke's dogs, Rufus and Nero, sat up in front of the fireplace where they had been snoozing and started to bark. Their deep voices formed a threatening, welcoming chorus for the unexpected visitor. People were usually a little taken aback when they realised a mastiff and a Great Dane guarded this ancient keep. Dolly was the nice little girl in the company, being able to work her way just as easily into people's hearts as she wormed herself into the castle's every nook and cranny. But Guinevere knew she was really the boss over the bigger dogs, who followed her lead on walks.
"What's that?"
Bolingbroke bellowed.
"Strangers at the gate. Are you expecting someone, Guinevere?"
"No, not that I know of." A strange excitement coursed through her that it might be one of her friends from the theatre in London. She had worked there as a costume designer before she had come here to Cornisea, for the summer only, as the theatre needed renovations and the cast had been forced to leave behind the place they thought of as home.
"I'll have a peek."
Bolingbroke hushed the dogs and left the room. He didn't have to open the front door himself, because he had a butler for that, a taciturn type named Cador, who could give Guinevere a start when he suddenly came upon her, moving through the castle noiselessly on his rubber soles. He seemed to be everywhere and see everything with his sharp blue eyes. Cador was supposed to politely dismiss unwanted visitors, so Bolingbroke didn't have to deal with them. His lordship then hid in the landing, waiting until the danger was averted. Grinning to herself, Guinevere walked to the door, still holding the book about treasures in her hand. She could hear Bolingbroke's careful footfalls across the creaking floorboards to the head of the stairs. There he seemed to wait, peeking down into the hallway to discern who was calling on him. Soon he had come galloping back to her and hide in his library, throwing the door shut and claiming he wasn't at home. There were many people Bolingbroke didn't care to see when they came to ask about the castle's future, about unpaid bills, or about donations for charitable projects. But now she heard a delighted cry.
"Gregory, old man!"
And Bolingbroke's heavy footfalls beat down the stairs. Dolly, beside Guinevere, made a surprised sound. Guinevere said to her, "Yes, girl, apparently it's someone Lord B does want to see. Let's have a look for ourselves who it is, then." She snapped her fingers to tell Dolly to walk by her side instead of rushing ahead, and then she tiptoed to the stairs to look down into the hallway below. If it was